virtual dynamic is hard on some folks because maybe you don't have an upstairs, right? So is the office in the bedroom? So how do you go from personal and professional in the same space? And that's dangerous for folks. That's real burnout. So you do want to find ways in which you step outside of that, do some creativity on the back porch, take a call outside,
Yeah.
if it's an internal call or something. So there are many ways in which we have to understand that the work at home dynamic can also, become really restrictive and in a sense, and
Yeah.
you're like, I need to get out of my space. And so go
Yeah.
on a bike ride, right? Go shift your gears. One of the things that I tell my folks is we are best at certain times in the day. So first off, do not set a meeting up for me before 10:30 in the morning. I'm not going to be good. I'm not going to be happy. And it's not a winning situation for anybody. So that period of time for me from 10 to about 3 o'clock is golden. Now, there are times in there where I'm good for client discussions. I'm good to help talk you off the ledge, as one of my colleagues or peers or employees. And then there's times where it's my time to work on an ad campaign, to work on a branding exercise, and I have to, go into that. And I now know those times when I'm best. And I try to tell people that too. Know that, right? Know when to come on. And what we've learned also for us is we have a great deal of super highly professional, highly talented, creative, and strategic moms. And so these are, women who are out in the world who are doing amazing things. It's time to start having their families. They don't want to go back. They want to be mom and professional. And we create a dynamic that really supports that. And many of the folks that we have are moms. So I get to watch babies go to high school and graduate, and off they go.
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing because if you think about it, I can manage the dynamic of how mom's available when there's baby brain or whatever else that's, happening to them, and they can fit in to when they are the most productive. And then I can watch a billable hour time go from I'm going to cut back. I'm having my baby. I'm going to go to part-time. I'm going to bill a certain amount of hours. I'm only available a few days. To now babies grow up and babies need soccer clothes and ballet and trips and all these other things. So now mom is working more hours and more hours and more hours. And next thing you know, this is a superstar, woman who's highly successful professionally and highly successful, personally as a mom.
Love that.
And when I realized how well this culture fits a demographic like this, it also changes the idea because now, I'm a relevant agency who's put DE&I in place. I've got, women partners. I've got very successful women, leading the charge in PR or in marketing strategies. And I feel really great because I'm creating a culture and a dynamic, which is exactly what we're out fighting right now for law firms and other corporations to step up and do.
Love that. Love that. There's that part of the workforce is incredibly powerful and untapped, and they struggle to get opportunities. Certainly before COVID, more so now. But and I think what you've been able to do and tap into that's amazing. Like a lot of other firms will miss out on that talent. They want them in 3 days a week. How come? Well, because I don't know, the water cooler moment or whatever, whatever it might be.
And we have our own. We create our own. We're leaving in 2 weeks for a corporate retreat in Savannah, Georgia. And, we all haven't been together since the COVID lockdown. So it's really great. We've grown so much since then that, I'm hiring people I've never physically met, and they're working out great. It'll be so great just to give them a hug and wow, I'm meeting the real person. And I've been working with this person for 2 years now.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy. I want to talk about that, but winding back, it's interesting. You know when you're most productive, right? And it's a thing. I'm reading a great book book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I mean, if no one's read it, got to read it. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. You know, that kind of 3 cornerstones of good health is sleep, nutrition, and exercise.
Right.
And sleep is not often talked about, and it's so important. And to your point, you know, there is such a thing as a night owl. You know, there is such a thing as a morning person. You know, we do have different rhythms and things like that. And you know, I'm kind of like, I get up early. My kids wake me up, but I get up early and I'm on it in the morning. Like, you know, whereas a friend of mine, similar to you, don't talk to me before 10:30, but they're still hitting it hard at, like, you know, later on. So again, that's part of just kind of knowing yourself, isn't it? Just understanding when you're most productive, because again, the 9 to 5 factory era vibe is you're just kind of assuming that everyone's productive between those hours. You know, you've got to do whatever 9 to 5, and actually, sorry, you want productive people. You want good outcomes, good outputs, whatever. And actually, one person might be way better. You want them working on your stuff at night, and someone else, you don't want them working at night. They're going to make way too many mistakes, almost asleep. You want them when they're most productive, and it might be in the morning. So that comes with knowing yourself, and then also finding the right company for you, that it gives you the opportunity to work in the times that you're most productive. I think
it's twofold, though. It's knowing yourself, right? Having that discipline and being comfortable in saying, this is when I'm most productive. And it's also at certain things. Like, talking to people. There's a certain time frame, and then I'm done. I don't want to talk to people anymore. But when you're running a company, you end up talking to people a lot. So when do you get to do your work and do your things? And it's interesting, going back to the moms, right? There's time frames that the moms have to be moms, and you can't change that. So school gets out at a certain time, buses come at a certain time. And so I will see, you know, moms come on early, while, you know, just to check some things, get some things situated, then they're gone. And then they come back because everybody's off to school and mom's had her coffee now and she can work. At 2:00, 3:00, gone. Right? Have to go get the kids, have to get things situated. Maybe there's a soccer game, maybe there's dance recital, you don't know. That's happening next. And then it's dinner. Somebody's got to cook dinner. And then I'll see them come back online later in the evening and work till 10, 11 o'clock at night. That's when it's quiet time and they can. But all that stress is gone. I can be a mom. I can happily be a mom, not, you know, full of stress and thinking that, you know, I'm being measured and watched. And then there's leadership. Now you have to create the culture that allows that individual to feel comfortable enough to operate when they're most productive and they're strongest. And that's the combination that works, because you can have the person who knows when they can be their best.
Yeah.
But if you're not in a culture that allows you to be your best in that time frames and it's constrained, then you're still only going to get partial of that individual to come to the table, because you haven't allowed them to work within that time frame, within those constraints in which they are the most productive.
Yeah, no, true. And also, let's for dads too. There's way more dads at the school gate now.
Yeah,
way more. You know, I drop my kids off every day, and I've always done that. But before and COVID, I would keep talking about COVID, but it was a kind of a little bit of a watershed moment. Before that, there was very few, like really very few. And I would say now, like at least 50%, if not more, dads are dropping off, or they're like kind of, you know, they do the drop off, someone does the pick up, or if they're working at home, they might go pick them up for 20 minutes, half an hour, take them home, get back on. So for everyone, I think it's really cool. I also think, just as a side point, you know, if you're lucky enough to have this conversation, it's a real privilege, isn't it? Because there's many folks that have to go in.
Yeah.
You know, medical professionals, policemen, whatever, like, you know. But if you're working,
we appreciate them, you know, we have to appreciate them, because they are there waiting for us to get there when we need them, or, you know, when they have to be in call, and we very much appreciate that. But when you think about those that are not necessarily needed to be there, and we start to, you know, eliminate emission issues and you know, Our environment seems to heal itself like it did during COVID, which was, we
Yeah.
watching the reefs and all kinds of things repopulate and grow back, because we don't have our hands all over things. And there's something to be said for that, right? And why do I want my people frustrated and stressed for being in a car for an hour and a half, and then to give up 3 hours of their lives? So when you create this dynamic and you foster it, and you have to take a sick kid to the doctor, and you're sitting there in the lobby, well, you have one of these things, and guess what? You can check your email, you can respond to Teams, you can still be present. And wow, does that take away so many of those micro stresses and things that build up inside of us that ends up making us sick or stressed out, or, our well-being is so affected by it. So I find, well-being, the idea of championing everybody to be their whole self and to bring that to work. Don't hide who you are. We have a large LGBTQ workforce within Jaffe. I'm very proud of that. So bring your family mindset to work. Feel comfortable to go where you need to go. And just remember that you have the ability to sit on the beach and work. You have the ability to sit in the emergency room and work. You have the ability to stay connected when and where you need to, and or not. And I think that's the thing I really want most people to understand is, if we can really combine and create that synergy between work and life, work is going to be better, more productive, more innovative, and more collaboration. But if we're so strict about it, then we're going to resist, we're going to pull back, and that stress comes in. And once that stress comes in, again, you're operating at maybe 50, 60%.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, work-life balance. Everyone talks about work-life balance, but the opposite of life is death. And they
Yeah.
quote work, opposite of work
Yeah.
is death. I always find that equation always a bit funny. There's also a really interesting book, and I don't know the author because my mum plays tennis with her, but and she was saying she was writing a new book. It was something like, and I'll message it on when we post our show. It's like something like poor guy who thought his work was his life, or something like that. Which is I thought really funny. But just on this, we went from all in the office, mostly in London, to my firm. We're 13 and a half years old now. It's evolved a lot, and now we're fully remote, like you. And I have people all over the world. Thank you. We've got US, all over the US, Europe, UK, India, Tokyo, the whole thing, fully remote. Just, it's just crazy how it's evolved these last few years.
Yeah.
I have to say, it was early on. Adjusting the way I led was just a big change because I was used to everyone in. We'd started in the US in 2019, so just before COVID. So we had one person in New York. So I'd experienced it a little bit, but mostly everyone was in the office. And then suddenly, the game changed and we got rid of our office. I cried myself to sleep at how much rent I'd spent over the last, whatever, 10 years before that. And I always thought, maybe it was my ego getting in the way, but we wouldn't be taken seriously without an office. We had an office by the Bank of England. We were a serious exec recruiting firm, and then we happened in America. We had to have a little office in New York. And actually, maybe we did then, maybe we didn't. I don't know. Now you don't, and I think, again, it's about output and it's doing good work for our clients and all of that kind of stuff. And we have working mums, and much like you, they can choose when and how they work, and they're dropping the kids off, picking up, just whatever. They can choose when they work. And it's been really cool. It took me a while to get used to. It was like, oh, this is odd, like I'm working between home and I like to. So when people say remote work, a lot of the time you're thinking you're working from home. Right. But I think also remote work, it doesn't necessarily mean you're working at home. It means you can work from wherever you want.
I work on a cruise ship sometimes. I work,
on a cruise ship,
on a vacation, whatever that might be.
No one cares, right? I'm doing a video call. You've got no idea where I am right now.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm at home in London. Really?
That's right.
Could be, might not. It doesn't really matter. Or I do a catch up on video with a client in New York, and, we're talking about search and going through candidates and the whole thing, and they don't care where I am. So that's interesting. And also for me personally, I don't like to stay at home all the time. I actually like to get out, and I like to to go somewhere. I like to use my legs and walk and all of that. And in London, you can, like it's a real walking city, bus, train, and stuff. So I a few days a week I go to like a co-working space or a coffee shop, or I work at home. So the remote work for me is that I can choose where I work, which I really like.